Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the unknown. Your heart pounds, your palms sweat, your mind races with 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't take that leap. What if I fail? What if I fall? What if I'm not ready? That feeling, that tight grip of fear is something we've all experienced. It stops us in our tracks, keeps us from taking risk, and convinces us to stay where it's safe. But what if I told you that fear isn't the enemy? What if I told you that fear is fuel? Every great success story starts with fear. The athlete before the big game, the entrepreneur before launching their first business, the artist before stepping onto the stage, all of them felt fear. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't the absence of fear. It's what they do with it. So tonight, I want to challenge you. Instead of running from fear, what if you leaned into it? Instead of letting it stop you, what if you let it push you? What if instead of seeing fear as an obstacle, you saw it as the energy that propels you forward? Let's talk about how to turn fear into fuel. Fear is proof of potential. That might sound strange at first, but think about it. When do you feel the most fear? It's never when you're doing something easy, something familiar, or something that doesn't matter. Fear shows up when you're about to step into something bigger than yourself, something that stretches you beyond where you are now. It's a signal that you're in the right place, on the edge of growth. Consider the moments in life when fear grips you the hardest. It happens before a big decision, before taking a leap of faith, before standing up for something you believe in. It happens when the stakes are high, when failure is possible, and when success feels just out of reach. But that fear is actually a good sign. It means you care. It means you're pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. If you never felt fear, it would mean you were living too small. Fear is like a lighthouse. It shines the brightest when you're near something important. Imagine an athlete before the big game, a performer before stepping onto the stage, an entrepreneur before launching a business. They all feel fear, but that fear is a reminder that they are stepping into their purpose. The reason fear is so intense in those moments is because deep down, they know they have potential. The mind creates fear when it recognizes that success is possible, but so is failure. The trick is understanding that the presence of fear doesn't mean stop, it means go. Think of a rocket before launch. The pressure builds, the ground shakes, and for a moment, it feels like everything might explode. But that pressure is necessary. Without it, the rocket wouldn't lift off. Fear works the same way. It creates pressure, but that pressure is meant to propel you, not paralyze you. The only time fear wins is when you let it make your world smaller. The moment you start avoiding what scares you, you start shrinking your life. You stay in the same job, the same routine, the same level because it's safe. But safe doesn't lead to greatness. The most successful people in the world aren't fearless. They just understand what fear really is. They recognize that the fear they feel is simply an indication that they are standing at the doorway of something meaningful. Instead of seeing fear as a stop sign, they see it as a green light. They acknowledge the nerves, the doubts, the uncertainty, but they move forward anyway because they know fear is a part of the journey, not the end of it. The next time you feel fear rising inside you, don't run from it. Lean into it. Recognize that it's proof that you're in the right place, that you're growing, that you're chasing something worth having. If there were no fear, it would mean the goal wasn't big enough. Fear only exists where potential is present. And the fact that you feel it means that something great is on the other side. Fear has a way of making people retreat. But what if it was actually a guide? What if, instead of being a warning to stop, fear was a signpost pointing you in the right direction? The things that scare you the most often hold the greatest opportunities for growth, success, and transformation. Fear shows up when you're about to step into unfamiliar territory, and that's exactly where you need to be. When you feel fear, it's an indicator that you're on the edge of something meaningful. Instead of avoiding it, you have to learn to move toward it. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty, but it is also an emotional compass. The things that challenge you the most are usually the things that help you grow the most. Take a moment to think about the things you've avoided because they scared you. Maybe it was speaking in front of an audience, applying for a job, starting a business, or even having a difficult conversation. The fact that those things triggered fear means they were important to you. Fear wouldn't show up if the outcome didn't matter. That's why using fear as a compass can be so powerful. When fear appears, instead of asking, how do I get rid of this? Ask, what is this fear trying to teach me? When you start seeing fear as a guide rather than a barrier, your perspective shifts. Instead of running away from challenges, you start running toward them. That's where real change happens. Imagine an athlete training for a major competition. The toughest exercises, the hardest drills, and the most painful workouts are usually the ones that bring the most improvement. If they avoided the exercises that felt the most difficult, they would never reach their full potential. The same applies to fear. If you constantly avoid the things that scare you, you never reach the level of growth that's possible. Think about successful people in any field. They weren't immune to fear, but they learned to lean into it. A public speaker wasn't born with confidence. They started by standing in front of an audience and feeling terrified. An entrepreneur didn't launch their business with complete certainty. They felt fear but took action anyway. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't the absence of fear, it's their response to it. They move toward what scares them, knowing that the discomfort they feel is actually pushing them forward. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It tells you to play it safe, to wait for the right moment, to stay where it's comfortable. But when you recognize fear as a compass, you start to see that those excuses are just distractions. The thing you fear the most is usually the thing you need to do. Every breakthrough, every achievement, every step toward a better version of yourself happens on the other side of fear. Instead of treating fear as something to avoid, start treating it as a signal to take action. Fear is not meant to stop you, it's meant to guide you toward exactly where you need to go. Perfection is a word that carries a heavy weight. It's something people fear, avoid, and even let define them. But the truth is, failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the process. Every person who has ever achieved greatness has faced failure, not once, but multiple times. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is how they view failure. It's not an end, it's a stepping stone. When you fail, it means you tried. And trying means you took action. That alone puts you ahead of the majority of people who let fear of failure stop them before they even begin. Most people are so afraid of making mistakes that they never take risks, never challenge themselves, never push beyond what they already know. But staying in the comfort zone means staying the same. Growth doesn't happen there. Every failure carries a lesson, and those lessons build the foundation for success. Think about a child learning to walk. They don't just stand up and start running. They fall over and over again. But every time they fall, they learn something new. They adjust, they balance better, they figure out how to move their legs in coordination. Eventually, they take their first steps. And after that, they walk, run, and never think twice about those early failures. But what if that child gave up after the first fall? What if they decided walking was too difficult and they were better off crawling for the rest of their life? It sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what many people do as adults. They experience failure and decide they're not good enough, that they should quit, that they were never meant to succeed. But failure is not a reason to stop, it's a reason to keep going. Every successful person has a history of failure behind them. Athletes lose games before they become champions. Writers get rejected before they publish bestsellers. Entrepreneurs go broke before they build million-dollar companies. The only difference between them and those who give up is their mindset. They understand that failure is not a reflection of their worth, it's a tool for improvement. Each failure brings valuable feedback, showing what worked, what didn't, and what needs to be adjusted. Most people want success to be a straight line from point A to point B, but that's never how it works. The path to success is filled with detours, obstacles, and setbacks. Those who embrace failure as part of the journey are the ones who reach the finish line. They don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves or doubting their abilities. They analyze, they learn, and they try again. Failure only has power over you if you allow it to. The moment you shift your perspective and see failure as necessary, you stop fearing it. You start using it. You realize that every setback is setting you up for a comeback. The more times you fail, the closer you get to success. Because failure is never the end of the road, it's just another step forward. Fear itself is not the enemy. Unpreparedness is. The reason fear feels overwhelming is often because deep down there is uncertainty about whether you are truly ready. Fear thrives in the unknown, in the gaps where doubt lingers, in the moments when you question if you have what it takes. But when you turn fear into preparation, it loses its grip. The more prepared you are, the less room fear has to control you. Think about an actor stepping onto a stage. If they haven't memorized their lines, rehearsed their movements, or fully embodied their character, fear will consume them. But if they have spent hours practicing, perfecting their performance, and refining every detail, they step onto that stage with confidence. The fear may still be there, but it no longer paralyzes them. Instead, it sharpens their focus. Preparation doesn't erase fear completely, but it transforms it into a source of energy rather than a source of anxiety. Fear is often a signal that you need to do more work. If you're afraid of failing a test, it might mean you need to study harder. If you're afraid of public speaking, it might mean you need to practice more. If you're afraid of launching a business, it might mean you need to refine your plan. Fear is not an obstacle, it's an indicator. It points out where you need to put in more effort, where you need to build more skill, where you need to gain more knowledge. Instead of letting fear intimidate you, let it instruct you. Consider athletes before a major competition. The ones who have trained relentlessly, pushed their limits, and prepared for every possible scenario walk onto the field with a different mindset. They still feel nerves, but those nerves are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign of readiness. The unprepared athlete, on the other hand, lets fear take over. Their lack of preparation amplifies their doubts, making them hesitate, second guess, and ultimately perform below their potential. Fear will always exist, but preparation determines whether that fear fuels you or cripples you. The same principle applies in every area of life. A job interview feels terrifying if you haven't researched the company, practiced your answers, or developed the right skills. A big opportunity feels overwhelming if you haven't taken the time to build a solid foundation. But when you prepare, fear turns into excitement. The difference between fear and confidence is often nothing more than preparation. When you know you've done the work, fear no longer has the power to stop you. Preparation is the antidote to fear. It doesn't mean you won't feel nervous, but it does mean that when the moment arrives, you won't let those nerves control you. You will step up, step forward, and step into your potential, knowing that fear has nothing left to feed on. You have done the work, you are ready. And when you are ready, fear becomes fuel, not a barrier. Fear is not just an emotion. It's a story we tell ourselves. It's the voice in our head that whispers doubts, plays worst case scenarios on repeat, and convinces us that we are not ready, not good enough, or not capable. But here's the truth. Fear is a liar. It creates a false reality designed to keep you in your comfort zone, and the only way to break free is to take control of the narrative. Instead of allowing fear to dictate the story, you have to rewrite it in your favor. The mind is powerful. It believes whatever you tell it repeatedly. If you constantly feed it thoughts of doubt and failure, that is what it will manifest. If you tell yourself, I can't do this, your brain will look for proof to confirm that belief. It will remind you of past failures, highlight your weaknesses, and magnify every possible obstacle. But if you flip the script and say, I must do this, or I will find a way, your brain will adjust. It will start searching for solutions, looking for strengths, and building a mindset that moves forward instead of holding back. Think about how fear manipulates your thinking. Before stepping into a challenge, it tells you you're not ready. But what if you responded with, I have everything I need to take this step? Fear says you might fail. You counter with, every failure is a lesson that gets me closer to success. Fear says people will judge you. You answer, their opinions don't define my journey. The moment you take control of the conversation happening in your mind, you take control of fear itself. Rewriting your inner dialogue is not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing a perspective that serves you instead of one that limits you. A person who approaches a challenge with the mindset of I am learning and growing will always perform better than someone who approaches it with the thought, I am not good enough. The words you use internally shape your actions externally. If you constantly tell yourself that you're stuck, you will be. If you tell yourself you are moving forward, you will find a way to make progress. Consider elite athletes, performers, or successful entrepreneurs. They do not allow fear to control their mindset. Instead, they train their thoughts just as they train their skills. They use affirmations, visualization, and deliberate self-talk to override the fear-based stories their minds try to create. They understand that thoughts become reality, so they choose to think thoughts that empower them. They do not let fear dictate the story of their lives. They become the authors of their own success. Every time fear arises, you have a choice. You can let it control the story, or you can take the pen and rewrite it. What you tell yourself determines what you believe. What you believe determines how you act. And how you act determines the results you get. The narrative is in your hands. Make it one that leads you forward. Fear and faith are two sides of the same coin. Both require belief in something that hasn't happened yet. Fear is belief in failure, in worst-case scenarios, in everything that could go wrong. Faith, on the other hand, is belief in possibility, in success, in everything that could go right. The difference between people who stay stuck and those who break through is which belief they choose to feed. Fear will always exist, but if you want to move forward, your faith has to be strong. Fear operates by magnifying doubts and uncertainties. It convinces you that obstacles are insurmountable, that you are not enough, that the path ahead is too risky. But faith does the opposite. Faith tells you that even if you don't have all the answers, you will figure them out. It tells you that challenges are opportunities in disguise. It tells you that no matter how many times you fall, you will rise again. Think about someone standing at the edge of a diving board for the first time. Fear grips them, whispering that they might slip, that the water might be too deep, that they might fail. But faith in themselves, in their training, in their ability, tells them to jump. The moment they leap, fear loses its power. The scariest part is always the hesitation before action. Once movement begins, fear starts to fade, and confidence takes its place. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait for the perfect moment, to gather more information, to be absolutely sure before taking the next step. But faith understands that no moment will ever be perfect. You will never have absolute certainty. The only way to gain clarity is to move forward despite the uncertainty. Fear says, what if I fail? Faith says, what if I succeed? Fear says, I don't know how. Faith says, I will learn. Fear says, I am not ready. Faith says, I will become ready. History is filled with stories of people who chose faith over fear. Every great leader, innovator, and trailblazer had moments of doubt. The difference is they didn't let those doubts make their decisions. They felt fear but moved anyway. They understood that fear is just noise, a mental barrier that disappears once action is taken. Fear asks you to shrink, to stay small, to remain in the comfort zone. Faith demands expansion, growth, and courage. Fear is passive. It waits for conditions to be just right before acting. Faith is active. It moves forward, trusting that the path will reveal itself along the way. The choice is always there. Feed your fear and you stay stuck. Feed your faith and you move forward. Fear may never completely go away, but it doesn't have to control you. The moment your faith becomes louder than your fear is the moment you unlock your true potential. Choose to believe in what is possible and let that belief drive you forward. Fear will always be there. It doesn't disappear just because you ignore it, and it doesn't fade just because you wish it away. But fear is not your enemy. It's your energy. It's the fire that can either burn you down or light your path. The choice is yours. You now understand that fear is proof of potential. It's a compass pointing you toward growth. It's a teacher showing you what needs more preparation. It's a test of your mindset, asking whether you will let it write your story or whether you will take control and rewrite it yourself. Fear and faith both ask you to believe in something you can't yet see. One in failure, the other in possibility. And if you're going to believe in something, why not believe in yourself? The people who achieve the most in life are not fearless. They are just unwilling to let fear dictate their future. They take action anyway. They prepare, they push through, they fall, they rise, and they keep moving forward. That's what I'm asking you to do today. Don't run from fear. Don't let it control you. Instead, embrace it. Use it. Turn it into the fuel that drives you toward everything you were meant to become.